Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Somebody said my name. I heard it. Hello. How you doing? It's August 25th. Is this when I start mourning impending winter? No, it's not. It's weird, though, because you do see, like, media putting out things like best summer books. And I'm thinking, summer's over, for God's sakes. Where were they? If you should have put that out in June. Nothing to get excited about, certainly, but whatever. So I have to tell you, the loan forgiveness thing. I'm glad for people who have debt and are struggling, and I suppose 10 thou comes in pretty damn handy for a lot of people, and 20 thou if you had a Pell Grant on top of it, which are geared toward lower income students. So all that's good, and I have been seeing on social media a lot of people saying how much this means personally to them. I mean, just family stories of, oh my God, I can't stop crying. This means this means that. What a huge burden, blah, 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 yada, 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 has been lifted. I meant to add to the burden part. But I read something that I don't know, I guess I've been out to lunch on this whole issue because I read something today that suggested that, well, I'll tell you flat out what it suggests. It says this: fewer than 40% of Americans graduate from a four-year college. First of all, I'm sort of stunned by that. I don't know why I thought it was more. Everybody goes to college. I guess not. Most people apparently don't. Fewer than 40% of Americans graduate from a four-year college. And who graduate from a four-year college, in general, end up earning more, being healthier, living longer, literally, all those things. And all those metrics, they do better. And the fact of the matter is that this is essentially money that is flowing to those who are ready in the upper percentiles. So, I mean, a lot of people say this universal kind of student loan forgiveness is not unlike giving a tax cut to mostly wealthy people. And I find that just impossible to believe, especially since it's capped at you can't be making over $125,000 and get it. But the reality is that Americans who go to four-year colleges tend to come from the top half of the income distribution, as much as there is, in this country. And they are disproportionately white and Asian. So my picture of who's getting this money had a lot of black faces in it. And then I read this and I thought, oh my God, what? And here's somebody, a progressive, by the way, saying, education debt is disproportionately concentrated among the well-off. which is not to say that a lot of people carrying this kind of debt are not well off. But the idea of loan forgiveness always has been couched as like a progressive thing. And it's not generally considered progressive to be arguing for a program that mostly benefits people who are already doing better than Americans. But the reality is that the Democratic Party has increasingly become the party of college-educated people. And so I guess we look after our own. This is an issue that resonates with us. But we shouldn't kid ourselves, I guess. And it's one of the reasons, according to this piece I read, that Biden has been so sort of lackluster on this issue, even though he's come through, tried to thread the needle with the 125,000 cutoff. He tends to be an old-fashioned working class type Democrat, even though a fascinating article I read shows he comes from wealth. Despite, on one side of his family, he comes from, it's an odd story. Someone really went into his genealogy and ended up finding things that he didn't even know. So anyway, this plan clearly is going to help a bunch of people. And the people that I am happy about getting helped are the tons of people, and I know this is where Biden really got won over. There are tons of people carrying a bunch of this debt who don't have the degree. They ended up not finishing, or they went to a community college for a year and a half, or they went to a 4-year school for 2.5. And then because of, who knows, family concerns, lack of money, they drop out. So now they're in the worst of all possible worlds. These are the people I want to help. They don't have the degree, which gives them the potential to, do better than most people, but they do have the debt of their unsuccessful attempt to get the degree. And those are the people that most need this help. I wish there was a way of means testing it better. I don't know, but whatever. And you can be a real progressive and think this is not the best way of helping Americans who are carrying this kind of debt. And you don't have to be a mean-spirited, well, I paid all my debt. Nearly broke me, but damn it, they can get broken too. I mean, the people that, if they didn't get something, or they don't think they've ever been given anything and they go berserk, yeah, those people, they're never happy when somebody gets anything. But, I'm just reading some of the different economists, and he says, well, I'm looking at a guy named Matthew, yeah. And he says that the income cap that Biden put in increases the share of the debt forgiveness that will flow to the people who really need it the most. And another said you should look at it as a kind of disaster relief that addresses the struggles of young Americans who've been just hit in every way with those huge skyrocketing costs of college, which, by the way, is where the problem is. Why can't we attack that? Our colleges have just become, these outrageous wealthy institutions that apparently rely on the labor of adjunct professors who they pay minimum wage, and then they raise their tuition, requiring people to have to take out loans and go into debt forever. I don't understand the whole, however universities really went astray, but they have. There's the problem. But this one economist says that, thoughtful people can disagree on student loan forgiveness, but, at least this, you could look at this as, again, disaster relief for people who've just been hit by, the COVID, the economy, the rising, all of it. So I just wanted to point out to you that I learned something with this, and I do want to reiterate that I'm very happy for people who will be finding relief as a result of this. There's no way, and in no other so-called developed nation, do people go into debt like this to get a college degree. This is the way we do it in America. Nowhere else. We are one sick puppy of a country. And speaking of sick, I want to move on to John Fetterman. I tuned in a little of CNN last night. Remember when that was? And I came midway through a piece on John Fetterman and how healthy he was or not. And it did have video of him that I guess was taken, was it yesterday or the day before, here in Pittsburgh at a steelworker event. One of the first things he's come out and spoken and, tried to be on the campaign trail. And CNN, at least the bit I saw, had pulled, I think, two things from his speech in which he appears to struggle with, in one case, making sense. It just seemed like word salad there for a second. And in another where he was struggling to pronounce a word and then sort of slurred it. Now, he has owned up to the fact that since this stroke, he has struggled with slurred speech, and that he's working with a speech therapist. I mean, this is not shocking after somebody has had a stroke. And that he also is having some difficulties with his hearing. So he acknowledges struggling with his hearing, struggling with his speech. And his opponent, Dr. Oz, is now going after the fact, rather openly, about Fetterman's health. And you could argue that in some respects it's fair game. There's a letter from a doctor to the Post-Gazette today that suggests exactly that, that people voting have a right to know how healthy people they're voting for are. And it's under a headline, "Is Fetterman okay?" And this guy writes from Mount Lebanon, MD. He says, from what he can ascertain, is Fetterman has a significant cardiac condition The severity of it has not really been disclosed, but gathered from what information we have is that he could have a really bad situation going here, really, where he might be needing a heart transplant, this guy says, in 5-6 years. And he goes on to say, political candidates should provide clear disclosure of their medical condition because citizens should know if the person they're voting for is going to be able to perform their duties. I suspect that's an Oz supporter, but I think it's a legitimate point. So Oz is now saying he wants to debate. That is not unusual. I think it's the norm, more than not, that candidates for the Senate, for the governor's seat, for those high-profile seats, certainly we're used to seeing debates. Clearly, Fetterman doesn't want to. And I know 2 reasons why he doesn't want to. One, he's no good at it. And I know this because even though he was trying to weasel out of a debate during primary, he ended up having to do a debate with his then opponents. God, can I think of who he was running? Connor Lamb and Malcolm Kenyatta, right? And of those 3, Fetterman was by far the worst. I mean, put in the worst performance. He wins overwhelmingly, but he did not show up well in debate. That's not his thing. Quite clearly, it's a guy who's not that great in a debate. So, since he's polling ahead of Oz, why should he? Well, he should because it's the right thing to do. However, if he knows he doesn't debate well, and Oz is, if anything, silver-tongued, it might be total BS that's coming out, but he's never at a loss for words. And the second reason that Fetterman would not want to debate is that he's now saddled. He's now saddled additionally with this recovering from a stroke in which he's impaired. He is, in fact, disabled. His hearing, his speech. Well, hearing and speech have an awful lot to do with how you're going to do in a debate. So I can understand how he's avoiding this. On the other hand, his avoidance is going to be used by Oz, and it ain't going to help Fetterman. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm glad I ain't running anyone's campaign. And the reality is Fetterman's going to have to continue to show up at things. And he's going to have to be transparent about what his health is. I mean, nobody has said that his brain has been impacted in ways that his cognition ain't working right. So in other words, he has the capability of being a functional senator, but he might not be physically yet able. I don't know, but I found what I saw on CNN last night troubling, and what I saw was all of 4 minutes. So I saw the end of something, but Fetterman did not look I don't have a clue the right thing is in a situation like that. We got what? Less than 3 months for October. Yeah, we got about less than 3 months. And this is a must-win race. And we lucked out big time in having the idiot Republican voters of the Commonwealth opt for Dr. Oz as opposed to David McCormick, who would have been by far the more formidable opponent, and I would argue could very easily have won, even against this interesting brand of John Fetterman. So there's that, and I think we should be aware that his health is going to become, I think, issue number one. And I hope handle it. Little Tony writes, I've heard CNN's new boss is going to turn it into another Fox News to get more viewers. A lot of people are upset. I hope they lose the faithful viewers they have. It's like you said in the past, they helped get Trump elected. Well, if they did, but that was under their last leadership. That was Zucker's doing. Zucker, in many ways, made Trump. He made him. Yeah, CNN. It's the new guy. Yes, the new guy wants them to do a more neutral. He feels that CNN has become just like MSNBC, and to a certain extent, he's correct. A lot of opinion and not as much news, and he wants it to get back to news. Now, I have to tell you, that's fine with me if they really do. But if it's this old-fashioned view of news as, there's two sides to every story, then that is not helpful. Because then that will... There's one thing about bashing Republicans all the time, and another thing about having the journalistic integrity to tell the truth about Republicans without fear that you'll be labeled as a MSNBC, propaganda machine. I don't know if that's where CNN is heading in terms of being a truth teller, because in this political climate, that makes you look like you're anti-Republican, because Republicans don't tell the truth, and you have to keep calling it out. I don't know. As you know, I pulled away from CNN long ago. I just can't take it. I can't take it. And you can tell the people that are left there are, they just look unhappy. They really do. Or I might be projecting. I don't know. They look unhappy. They canceled one of their better shows. That is a Sunday show, I think it was, Reliable Sources with Brian Stelter. And that was a good show, looking at media critically. And this new guy yanked that. So I don't know. I don't think they'll turn into Fox, but you'll see them pull back from the opinion-dominated stuff. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to, Don Lemon or Anderson Cooper in the evenings. Are they both still there? Because those shows are like, more opinion. If they want to just go back to doing straight news, then do news and do more than one story. Inform us about what's going on in the world. That's another thing I found out today. I saw a little teeny item that said, we, the U.S. military, we struck some in another country, apparently yesterday. Are you aware of this? airstrikes. We dropped bombs on a country yesterday. Do you know which country? And I never heard it. I didn't know we were dropping bombs over there. And again, this is the kind of thing, if CNN wants to go back to informing us about more than just one story ad nauseum, I'm for that. If I know I can turn to CNN and in 30 minutes get a pretty good overview of what's going on in the frigging world, I'd be happy. I might tune in. But I suspect that's not what they're going to do. Anyway, you know who we bombed? I took a picture of this little thing I saw. We killed 6 people, although the people on the ground say we killed 10 people. Do you care? Do we know? Are they good guys, bad guys? You know, check back. Who the hell knows? The U.S. military said early Wednesday, okay, that's yesterday, it carried out airstrikes in eastern Syria. Just want you to know, we bombed Syria yesterday. And my bet is that did not make the news. I might be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. If you were watching a newscast and they actually said, we friggin' bombed Syria yesterday, it would be, that would, you know, put me in my place. But my guess is you didn't see it. Because we have a media that just doesn't inform us anymore. Somehow that doesn't make the cut. Oh, we killed how many? You know, obviously bombings, supposedly people affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. I don't know. Maybe we, yeah, fine, good, I guess. But so, okay, I have another, I have a little, I'm a little worried this is not nice of me to do, but I just consider us all friends, and I need to, I came upon something that I have a question about, so I'm going to ask you, and it was in my perusal of the obituaries today. You know how I like those obituaries. And first, what I do is I don't look at all the individual ones. I run down, they just give a rundown of the names of the most recent dead people we got here on the page. If you want to know more, you go under that and, you know, get more of a sketch of each person. Well, in going through the names today, there were 2 that were the same name. It's alphabetized. There all of a sudden was the same exact name, and it's such an unusual name that it caught my eye because the odds of that name ending up in the obits is infinitesimal, let alone 2 of them. And you could tell they have where they're from, and they weren't from the same place. And I thought, how bizarre. So I did look further. And damn, I won't give the name. It's one of those unpronounceable names. Kalupa something. Okay, so one of the deceased is a 60-year-old woman of Shaler Township. And it's just a very, you know, bare bones obit. It has her pictures, lovely looking young woman. And it says that she's the mother of quite a few, and the daughter of the late so-and-so and so-and-so. And she's survived by her husband and her sister and a brother who looks to be a Catholic priest. And also, it says here that she's the former spouse of the late John. There's the other name. And in her obit, they say she's the late spouse of this. She's the former spouse of the late. So I go to his obit, and his obit says, they passed away on the same day, and his children are named the same as her children. Okay, so these two were married. And it says that he was preceded in death by his parents and his former wife, Cindy. That's the other obit. So he says he was preceded in death by her. I think she said that she was just the spouse of the late John. What happened here? Different funeral homes. Was this a murder-suicide that wasn't in the news? What the hell happened here? All right, I'm just asking. For two people who were married and had children together, clearly are not married anymore and weren't, both died on the exact same day. And he says in his obit that he passed away peacefully. And they didn't say. What is that? Can it be coincidence? No. Okay, so this is why, I'm sorry. I love reading obits. But that's an odd one, huh? Begs the question or two. I feel for the kids. And as far as I can tell, let me see. Their mother's being buried tomorrow. Her father's being buried Sunday. Oh. Anybody got any ideas? Yeah, Margaret's saying sounds like a murder. It does, but then doesn't that make the news? And how do you, if it sounds like a homicide, suicide, well, but how do you say that he died peacefully? So you can't have a murder-suicide in which somebody dies peacefully. I suppose you could lie. This is why I thought it was maybe unseemly to bring this up, but I mean, it's in the paper. I can't figure it. Can't figure it. You know how I've been trying to burst the trial balloons that California Governor Gavin Newsom keeps sending up, considering himself great presidential material. First of all, I just don't like this guy on site. And I know, I don't like him on site. I think he'd be a horrific candidate. The liberal governor of the most liberal state. Yeah, that's not the candidate you want. Especially, California and Californians are hated by most of the country. And California is one effed up state. I'll tell you that. Their homeless problem, their public school problems, my God, the natural Mother Nature problems they're dealing with, not government's fault, I guess. Anyway, I was thrilled to see that somebody writing in the Atlantic did a piece on Gavin Newsom. And he calls him the Ron DeSantis of the left. Hey. And I mean, he does because he sees what Newsom's doing. Newsom is taking out ads, taking on sort of the culture wars from the left side in hopes of making, looking like the perfect person to stand in opposition to a Ron DeSantis. But this guy who wrote it, who lives in California and knows DeSantis more than I do, does this. As a Californian, I struggle to imagine a bigger waste of time than the way Newsom has been spending his. Here he is, the governor of a disaster-prone state with 39 million residents, and he's bragging about trolling MAGA types on an off-brand Twitter account. I mean, so he's out there, he's doing the social media thing, he's trolling. He actually put out that he joined Trump's Truth Social, and he's going to be active on it, just annoying the hell out of them. Like they like to annoy us. He's just taking their playbook and annoying them. And this guy says this is all the product of really perverse incentives for him. This is, if he were to do his job as governor, he wouldn't have time to raise his national profile. But a really easy way to attract attention and ingratiate yourself with a bunch of Democrats who aren't really necessarily paying the kind of attention they should is to do this very public kind of fight picking that he's engaged in. So he says this might actually work for him. I'm sorry. The reality is, I'm sorry about this dead air, excuse me. He says Newsom's, for his constituents, we just like him to maybe pay attention to business. So I'm just saying no to Gavin Newsom. I'm saying it now as loud as I can. Everything about him is something I can't stand. Margaret, give it up. She says, well, you could say peaceful if he was poisoned. I don't know. Nobody knows. Here's another story that I haven't talked about. But if you bother to read about it, you get so scared that you can barely function. So you want me to tell you about it? No. It's about the nuclear power plant that is right smack dab in the middle of the Ukraine-Russian war, and in fact has been taken over by the Russians, who are holding the plant workers hostage, guns to their heads, to run the damn plant, which is, by the way, the largest nuclear facility in Europe. There are 6, count them, reactors there. And they're currently being cared for by terrified Ukrainians with Russian guns on them. And the place itself has been attacked by the Russians. There were they were shooting at it in the early days of the war and recently shooting at it again. Let me tell you, this is making a lot of people very nervous. So much so that the Security Council at the United Nations had a special meeting the other day about what the hell can we do to secure this. So you got people from the European Union, from the U.S., from the UN, and they're saying we got to at least set up some demilitarized zone here because this plant is endangered, and if it's endangered, all of Europe is. If this baby goes down, it would make Chernobyl look, and the Russians are really good at having meltdowns, right? Comes to nuclear meltdowns, see the Russians. So experts from the International Atomic Energy Agency are clamoring to get in there and ensure that it's safe. The piece, I guess this was from the New York Times, it says that literally standing between the world and a nuclear calamity bigger than Chernobyl are the Ukrainian workers who are the ones who know how the plant operates, having run it for years. And now they are essentially hostages. Who obviously keenly feel the responsibility to prevent disaster, which would kill them, their families, and everybody, God knows, for hundreds of miles around. All the while, they're supposed to. One of the things that I read in the article is to have a job like this in a nuclear power plant, you have to have a certain personality. And one of the things you have to have, and one of the most important things, literally, is to be a cool cucumber, to be able to keep your cool. Because people who are under stress do not make wise decisions. And so there's a great deal of concern that even though these guys know the plant, know what they're doing, they are under so much stress, they are tired, they are scared, they might be acting cool and doing their jobs, but there's trouble there. Just want you to know that site, here's what the guy says, the main condition for operating a nuclear plant is calm. It should always be calm. And that means having everything calm when the worker goes home. When a person is calm, the person makes better decisions. In a state of tension or fear, people make mistakes. This plant is huge. Huge. I mean, I was looking at a map of the layout. Good God in heaven. Largest in Europe. So, there was that I wanted to share with you. And then, I know this must annoy some of you. People it annoys are the people who have lawns. You know I'm on a tirade about lawns. and I'm hardly alone, but lawns make up such an extraordinary percentage of American acreage. This piece has the numbers, if I can find them. Unbelievable. And lawns are by their nature sort of decorative and non-functional. Oh yeah, you can play, kids can play on them. But most lawns, that's not the way they're used. Of course, I can't find how many. 40 million acres. 2% of the land area of the lower 48 is ornamental green lawns that are totally unproductive in terms of what they're doing for the surrounding ecosphere. In fact, counterproductive. 40 million acres. The entire state of Georgia is not that big. And we pour 9 billion gallons of water on this useless greenery every day in this country. And as you know, there are parts of this country that are suffering drought. In a world that is increasingly thirsty for water, to put it into maintaining this totally unproductive land is absurd. But I know you love your lawn. You love it. Dan Zach, writing in the Post today, says this. He's obviously on my side. Lawns still. Wow. The planet has accelerated its revolt against us, and still we tend our lawns. The one part of Earth we can control. Society falters, resources dwindle, and still lawns. Burned out, blonde and dead in the air fryer of August, lawns, emerald green, alien green, kept that way by maniacal vigilance and an elaborate system of pipes and potions, poisonous and otherwise, in defiance of ecology. And for what? He thinks to have in this chaos dominion over something. He calls it lawn and order. Lawn and order. The need to drape a veil of verdancy over a world gone to seed. And to feel equal or superior to the guy across the street, whose lawn always looks like the 18th at Pebble Beach. I love this guy's written this so beautifully. When did all this start up? The late 1800s. Here's a piece from 1870. A smooth, closely shaven surface of grass is by far the most essential element of beauty on the grounds of a suburban home. So it became a sign of status. Because before lawns, you know what people had? Yards. You know what you did in a yard? Just about anything. You grew stuff, you kept chickens. Sorry. You kept chickens. And there were yards. And then, because we like to keep up with the Joneses and stuff, those yards started looking a little, sort of like having a upholstered couch on the front porch. Doesn't look right. So in 1937, the New York Times declared, for setting off both the house and the landscape, planting a good lawn is of vital importance. And so we became people who controlled our lawns and whose lawns controlled us. Here's the part I want to tell to all the people, the masters of the universe, who think that this is showing their dominion and power. Who's in charge? You really want to spend every Saturday or every Sunday mowing that thing? Worrying about it? Well, Americans love their lawns. But it is, if you ask anyone who knows and cares about nature, a lawn is ecologically dead. It's a monoculture in a world that is desperate for biodiversity. There's a book called The Lawn, A History of an American Obsession. And the author of that says this: on the American front lawn, men use power, machinery, and chemicals, the tools of war, to engage in a battle for supremacy of Mother Nature. What insanity! More and more, people are falling out of love with their lawns. I did. It takes a while. And one of the things that helped me is I have mostly shade. It was hard to grow. There was more weeds than anything else. Not that I care, because I'm not going to use pesticides or herbicides, any of those things. So I eventually, as you know, I pulled it all up. There ain't no. Now, of course, I have grass growing in places, but I consider it a weed. So grass has gone from something I weed to being cataloged as a weed. And I've planted plants, which the deer of the East End have heard about and consider my address one of their favorite yeah, well, what are you going to do? It's always something. Oh, I'm feeding the deer. And at least that is doing something. So, we just, the biggest crop by area in the United States is something useless. It's grass. More acreage in grass than in corn than in soybeans. Unproductive grass. So I just want to say, I'm going to keep on this because I'm right. And I look at these expanses of, most people in my neighborhood still have lawns, although not as many as there used to be. And more and more and more, especially in the city where you just have a little spot, right? Why even bother with grass? I saw a guy with a power mower in my neighborhood mowing a postage stamp size grass in his front yard, which was so tiny. And I thought, and he's got a power mower? Are you kidding me? You could take a scissors have it done in 20 minutes. So I'm just trying to plant the idea in as many heads as I can. It takes a while, but there are landscapers, people out there now who'd be happy to help you create beauty that is functional and beauty that brings birds, more birds to your home. And that squirrel, by the way, is eaten absolutely I don't know what to do. That's on my list today. Deal with the squirrel. But I have since getting rid of my lawn, I definitely see more wildlife, including deer. And everybody's happier. I gave my push mower away. It's not taking up space in my garage anymore. But if you think about the absurdity of growing grass that doesn't get you high. If you want to grow grass, how about, just grow some pot. That at least has a purpose. I think that's it for me. Let me just double check. I hope nobody called because I wasn't watching again. Barbara points out the planet is approaching 8 billion people and we ain't ready. And one thing we could do that will help is get rid of the grass. Well, I see California did what? They mandated that only no gas-powered cars can be sold there after, what was it, 19. Get in the right century, Cullen, 2035, I believe. So that's good because a state that big, a market that big will have an impact. And the auto companies are going to have to start saying, oh, God, well, we can't sell them there. And people aren't going to be wanting to buy something. So even a few years before that date, they're not going to be buying gas power. It'll have an impact, which is great. And California is good for that kind of thing. Setting a bar for the rest of us to avoid, more than likely avoid. That's my guess. Okay, I think that's it pour moi. And thank you for joining me, if in fact you did. And I should be back on Monday. Look forward to it. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.